Two things are constantly on the mind of any high school senior: getting into college and making money. Logically, I didn't want to leave either of these things to chance. I wanted to do everything I could to influence the outcome and give myself the best chance to succeed. When I first started my college admissions journey, I was initially overwhelmed about where to even begin. I didn't know how to determine which schools were targets, which were reaches, and which schools actually aligned with my interests. Fortunately, the College Counseling Office introduced us to a platform called SCORE, and one feature immediately caught my attention. This was the scattergram. This was a chart based on only 2 data points, your GPA and your SAT. And I was initially obsessed with this tool. I would compare my data points to previous data points from previous students to see which colleges I thought I could get into. At this point, I started to feel a little more confident about the process, like I wasn't just guessing anymore, like I had found a way to reduce uncertainty and give myself a better way to try and predict my outcome for the future. At this same time, I started investing. I'd made a decent amount of money lifeguarding the previous summer, and I figured instead of having my money sit in my bank account, I should do something smart with it. I was hearing a lot about investing on social media like Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, and influencers all made it sound so easy. Like all you had to do was pick the stock, invest a little bit of money, and your gains would exponentially increase. However, this was not the case. I remember when I first invested, I was staring at my portfolio every morning, waiting for my gains to skyrocket, but my beginner's luck was not nearly as impressive as I had anticipated, and I knew that there was something missing in my approach. This is when I realized how similar these two things were: trying to predict college admissions and making money in the stock market. Both were using data to try and predict the future. And I thought that if there was a simple chart that could help better estimate college admissions, there must be some sort of predictive model that I could use to help make money in the stock market. So, rather than relying on social media advice, I started researching different careers in finance that make money in the stock market. Some examples of this are algorithmic traders, portfolio managers, and quantitative analysts. And I didn't know how they all made money, but I knew they all invested in the stock market. I didn't know what they did, and I didn't know how investors knew when or what to invest in, and what was so complex about the models that they use. This is when I learned about the basis of machine learning, which is the basis for all this different type of prediction. And what machine learning is a form of artificial intelligence that learns from past predictions in order to try and predict the future. My interest in machine learning as a tool to reduce uncertainty led to a research project this past summer where I used different AI models to see how accurately they could predict stock prices. So I used a variety of different models, but I'm just going to focus on the main 3 today and explain them. Firstly, we have linear regression. So this is the most basic out of all the models. It focuses on the strongest correlation between 2 variables and sees how if one variable goes up, how does the other variable go up as well? The neural network is different than this because it takes in many different variables. So it processes the different inputs through different layers to see how they combine to form one output. So this model performs very well in complex situations with a lot of different variables. However, when there's only a few variables, it overcomplicates the situation and it mistakes random fluctuations for patterns. And finally, the k nearest neighbors. This model is similar to how we think about the score scattergram. The way that this model works is that you have the data points from today, and this model looks for the data points from the past that most resemble today, and this future is what the future is in reality for the prediction. So this model works very well when data repeats, but it struggles immensely when there's a new data arises because it is based entirely on the past prediction. So This is similar to how we think about the score scattergram, because we try to estimate where we can get into college based on looking at past applicants and their GPAs and their test scores. So I programmed these different models and compared their accuracies in predicting the opening stock prices for 6 different companies across 6 unique fields. And what I found really surprised me. I found out that the linear model actually performed the best. I thought that the neural network, with its complex structure and ability to process so many different variables, there are all these different layers, would be more accurate. But what I learned was this lesson. Complexity is not always equal to accuracy. And this relates to the overall human experience. We often think that if a solution to a problem is complex, multifaceted, with all these different steps, it must be the best solution, when in reality, a lot of the times, the simplest, most straight line solution is often the most effective. And this relates to the idea that humans think that adding more variables will allow them to predict the future. This relates to the idea of predicting college admissions, because we often stare at past data, GPAs, test scores, scattergrams, to try and get a better sense of what will happen for us, when in reality, past data is never aligned with reality. Students often stare at those little green dots on the score scattergram as if they're going to reveal something magical about where they're going to get in. But in reality, predicting the future is always impossible. So, if prediction is impossible, why do we do it? There's so many different ways that people try to predict the future. While I've been focused on stock algorithms and score scattergrams, some people turn to psychics, crystal balls, tarot cards, or even palm readings. There's even entire predictive markets based on this desire for certainty. Polymarket and Callsheet are 2 betting sites where you can bet on nearly the outcome of any event in the entire world, ranging from major political events to the weather of the next day. No matter what tool you're using, the ultimate goal is always the same. You're always searching for certainty in an uncertain world. And I realized, if we can't accurately predict the future, the only thing that we can focus on is what we can control, and how we can use this to better influence the future in a way that will benefit us. So, in terms of the stock market, while you can't actually know the return price of any stock in the future, you can make decisions that can help increase your chances of making money over time. You can meet with a portfolio manager to develop a strategic investing plan, and even research stocks yourself to establish your own risk tolerance. In terms of college admissions, while you can't guarantee any specific outcome, you can work hard doing all your homework, studying for all your tests, getting involved in extracurriculars within and outside of school, and not using AI on your essays. In terms of your personal life, no one knows who we're going to become, and this uncertainty is unavoidable. That's why choosing to invest in people, choosing partners that align with our values, maintaining relationships, and putting effort into keeping these relationships is the only thing that is truly in our control. So, you can't control chance, but you can control how you choose to portray yourself, your character, your effort, and your curiosity. So, let me ask you one final question. Is uncertainty actually a bad thing? How interesting would life be if you knew everything that was going to happen? If you knew exactly how much money you'd make, exactly where you were going to college, exactly how your life would unfold? Would any of life still feel challenging, fun, or meaningful? Well, even when we try to predict the future perfectly, sometimes there are moments that we can never predict. These are known in finance as black swans, events that come up out of nowhere that no data could have prepared us for. Examples of this are 9/11, the COVID pandemic, the financial crisis of 2008, and even the rise of the internet. No amount of data and no amount of preparation could have changed any of this outcome. And as humans, sometimes we need to accept that we have done all we could, and there's nothing more that we could have done. So, ultimately, there is no formula for pure certainty. There's no code that can remove randomness, and life doesn't give you an error message before it throws something unexpected at you. So, that's why relying on past predictions doesn't guarantee anything. Sure, it can serve as a guide in a sense, but it does not serve as a map. There's a famous saying, if we don't study history, we are prone to repeat it. However, even when we do study history, there's no model that can factor in every variable, luck, randomness, good timing, bad timing, or even the occasional black swan. Steve Jobs talked about this same idea in his 2005 Stanford commencement speech. He randomly dropped out of college and took a calligraphy class, a class that seemingly made 0 sense for his future. However, this class actually shaped the first original fonts on the first Macintosh computer. His point was simple. You can't connect the dots looking forward. Only when looking backward do things start to make sense. And this applies to your personal life as well. When you choose to invest in people, with your relationships, with your friends, your family, your loved ones, you don't know if your relationship will last 1 year, 5 years, or even 50 years. You don't know what the return will be. When you choose to invest in yourself, when you take a risk and apply for that job, take a risk and start that business, take a risk and go to the gym consistently, even without seeing results at first, when you act with kindness, even when no one is watching, you don't know where any of it will lead. Fortunately, life isn't about eliminating uncertainty. It's about moving forward with enough clarity to deal with the uncertainty when it arises. Because no one can predict the future perfectly, but you can influence it. Thank you.